Welcome to a two-part video about using West System 402 milled glass fibre blend for a bow repair. The guy who owns this boat has been very unlucky, but he's incredibly competitive. Unfortunately, he hit the slipway on his return to the Yacht Club dinghy park, and this damage looks almost unrepairable. But I can assure you that within the content of these videos, you will have some really good top tips on how to repair this kind of damage. So important to go through this logical process of assessment, preparation, and then conducting the repair. Now, assessment, so we have no star crazing that extends around the area of impact, but what I'm going to do is grind this out, and then I'll take a closer look, and then I can conduct the extent of my tapered repair in preparation for the repair itself. A little bit of theory. We've cut away our damage, but the question is, how far should we grind to create a bevel here? And our formula for success is to use a 12:1 bevel. On a small boat, we might measure the laminate thickness here at 2 millimeters. So our bevel needs to round up to the nearest figure, 25 millimeters in surface area. I'm going to make sure that I'm wearing good personal protection equipment. I'm wearing gloves, I'm wearing goggles, I'm wearing a mask, and I've got a full Tyvek oversuit. So I'm now ready to do this grinding process. I'm using an angle grinder to grind away the damage itself. Once I've removed the damage, I can then measure the thickness of my laminate. Here I've got a laminate thickness of 2 millimeters, so I'm going to make the perimeter of my taper 25 millimeters and use a pencil just to mark out the perimeter of my taper, which should be 12:1. And now I'm grinding that to create my strong taper. So we're now prepared to conduct our repair. And you can see that this is ground nicely to a nice taper. And all I'm going to do now is dust the repair so I don't contaminate it with any solvent or even touch it with my fingers, because that might compromise the bond that we're able to achieve. I'll now mask the bottom of the repair. First step is to prime this area, and that will give us the maximum available bond. We should be looking for a strong colour change here, which is an indication that the epoxy has whipped into the surface fibres and really anchored itself. I'm going to use a small glue brush. Just going to use a pair of mole grips just to nip up the bridle on the brush. And I'm now going to metre out 1 pump of resin and 1 pump of hardener. I'm going to use a mixing stick to mix the two together. Then I use my glue brush just to very carefully brush the contact surface of the repair with the resin hardener mix. And you can see already the laminate has changed colour, indicating that our epoxy is wicking into place. You can do this kind of work outside on a good day, and if it's not a good day, then create some kind of tent or awning that you can work under. Once you get below double figures, then it becomes quite difficult to work with the resin and hardener mix. The resin becomes thick and unwieldy, it's difficult to blend, it's difficult to get the correct amount of filler in. So temperature does play a part, but it's certainly possible for you to conduct this kind of work in the dinghy park. So I've made sure that I've brushed the whole surface area of our repair with the resin hardener mix. I'm now going to leave this for about a couple of hours until it becomes as sticky as masking tape, and then I can carry on with the remainder of my repair. I'm now going to conduct the structural part of my repair, and it really is not difficult. I'm going to meter out 1 pump of resin and 1 pump of hardener, then I'm going to blend the two together. I'm then going to add my West System 402 milled glass fibre blend, and I'm going to use the measuring scoop in the pot to give me a very, very flat scoop of the filler. I'm going to add that in, and I'm going to blend that with my mixed epoxy. Now this mix, although it has a lot of fibre reinforcement, it's actually too runny to stay on the work. So I'm going to add some West System 406 colloidal silica, about half a scoop of this to thicken this up. I've now got quite a substantial mix which will stay on my mixing stick reasonably well. I'm now going to use my mixing stick to apply this to the work in small quantities. Making sure that this stays in place. Making sure that I push this back down the aperture that I've opened up as part of my repair. Making sure that I get to the very edges of the repair. This looks quite unwieldy, this filled mix, but I can assure you, with just a little bit of care and patience, you can really effect a very, very good, very, very sturdy and very, very quick structural repair. Now, I'm sure you're going to say that looks pretty awful, and I think I'd agree with you, but what we're going to do now is create a former either side of this repair to make a nice, smooth, fair repair that we can then work on after it's cured and feather it and fair it in to the existing shape. Now to do this, I'm going to use some peel ply. This is 100mm wide peel ply tape, which I've cut so that it will just cover the repair. Peel ply is fantastic when you're working with epoxy. It leaves an imprint of the weave of itself on the work, and any aiming blush that occurs on the surface of the peel ply. Once the epoxy is cured, you just rip this away, and underneath you have a pristine textured finish that's ready to bond to, or ready to fill, or even ready to paint. So I'm actually going to put this on carefully from this side, which will secure it in place. Then I'm going to take a plastic squeegee, some sticky tape around it, and stick this in place on this side. Stick that in place. That will create a nice former for this side of the hull. Bring my peel ply tape over here and gradually use my gloved hands to form the repair up against the plastic squeegee. Now once I've done that, I'm going to take this other plastic squeegee and I'm going to tape that onto here. And you see if I can just push on that nicely, that will form to quite a good shape, quite a good degree of conformity to the original hull shape. This is certainly much better than trying to form this freehand just by screeding a filler over the surface. This does define the original shape of the hull and will limit the amount of further work we have to do. Now I have to let this cure for 24 hours before I can start grinding it again and perhaps refilling it to make it fair again.